Now that we're settled in our new house and getting used to the new property, it's time to remove some trash that I've found. There's some old tires and junk associated with beagle training that the previous owners used to do. I also found some old farm equipment that I need to drag out. Maybe eventually I'll take this stuff to a metal recycler, although I have no idea if it's worth anything. During my cleanup, I found an old trailer that had obviously been there for a while based on the trees that had grown in around it. Some of the parts were seized or rusted together, so I put some penetrating oil and let it sit for about 24 hours, and then beat it with my patented hammer and broke it free. After uncovering and freeing the trailer hitch mechanism, I was able to attach it to my four-wheeler and drag it out. My brother has called dibs on this thing because he wants to turn it into a pig cooker. You can see in this clip, I've definitely pulled out a lot of junk. Eventually I have to put it on the trailer and take it to the recycling center or the dump just to get rid of it. In addition to removing a lot of the trash, I cleared out a bunch of brush and tree branches from the trails that already exist. I didn't get a lot of footage of this, but you can see Davis really enjoys it because he can take his Jeep down without getting stuck on anything. The next thing I decided to do, even though I've barely scratched the surface on rebuilding the trail system, is to reconstruct Davis's playground. He's been begging for me to put his zip line and slide up, and who could resist?
Hi, Dada.
My brother very graciously volunteered his entire weekend off to help us out. You should go to his YouTube channel, Goat River, and check out some of his videos. It's pretty entertaining. He experiments with what his goats are willing to eat, and he also goes over some videos on how to do goat care and some basic fence building. I'll make sure to link everything down below so you can find him. To get started on the playground, we need to clear out a space first. I use my handy-dandy bush axe to clear out some vines. I also use the Tarzan method to help remove some vines that were a bit stubborn. Just make sure to do this at your own peril. Fortunately, there wasn't too much to clear, but we did have to cut down a couple of small trees to get them out of the way. Otherwise, the space we're working in is pretty naturally open. After making space, my brother and I put up the zip line. It's kind of a pain in the butt, and you definitely need two people, but fortunately, we've done it before at our previous property, and at least knew what we were doing this time. Davis was more than willing to help us test out the final product. After a couple of test pushes, we let him go full bore, and he really enjoyed it. It's just crazy that in my previous video, when I demonstrated the zip line, he was basically a baby and had to be put in a special seat, and now he hangs on by himself. Of course, all the adults took a test run too. We also wanted to stress the line a little bit and make sure it's living up to its maximum weight limit. Next up is the rope swing, which is a very similar process to the zip line in that you have to hang a cable between two trees and tension it properly. The tension on the rope swing isn't quite as important as the zip line though, and a little bit of slop allows you to kind of swing in different directions and makes it fun. After installing the rope swing, we moved on to the Pallet Playhouse, which has definitely withstood the test of time. We couldn't move it, especially with our passenger, so we decided to use some lifting straps. These are the same things that allow us to get our refrigerator into the house, which was pretty useful. My wife has suggested buying several types of bright colored paint and letting Davis decorate this thing. I think it would definitely be a fun project for him. I'm just trying to decide if regular paint or spray paint would be better for him. Next up in the playground rebuild is putting Davis's slide back together. We still have the plastic part, I just need to put the wood frame back on the tree. Luckily, I actually had some old 2x4s in the garage that were pretty much the right size, so it didn't require a trip to the hardware store. I used some 2.5-inch screws, and plenty of them, to get the process started. Just a couple of 2x4s between the trees, I was able to start a platform. This platform will eventually double as the starting point for the zip line. Once Davis is big enough to climb up here, he'll be able to use the whole length of the zip line. I want to level it just a little bit even though it's a platform in the middle of the woods, just to keep things nice. You can probably hear the hum of my generator in the background, which lets me run my drill. I also had a little visitor during this process. Next up is to cut the platform for Davis to actually stand on. My wife was gracious enough to help hold things for me so I can get some cutting done. She also did a little bit of videography for me. For something that I just measured once and cut once, I got pretty close. After a couple of screws to secure the top of the platform, I was able to add the slide, and now everything is starting to actually take shape. To get all these tools into the woods and power everything, I'm still using my cart setup behind the four-wheeler, which has worked out pretty well. The last step in the slide build is to add a little bit of a ladder, that way he can climb up. Here's our final product, which to me looks great. I know it's not the fanciest thing, but Davis is going to love it. To give Davis some storage options in his playground, mostly to put his digging equipment like his excavator and his bulldozer, I decided to recreate his miniature hoop house. I used a pallet and some PVC pipe along with a tarp, and it came together pretty quickly. The tarp I'm using here is actually the original one that we used on the previous property. It's like 2 years old and is still going strong. Trying to keep things simple, I just assembled everything with zip ties rather than pieces of 550 cord, which I used last time. After finishing up, my wife and I helped load in the toys he typically uses on the playground, things he mostly associates with his sandbox. Even though the playground's not totally done, it's time to pick Davis up from school, and the first thing he did was make a beeline to his slide, which is really satisfying. He climbs right up, which is just super impressive because if you remember my first video, he had a lot of help. Now he's, quote, a big boy and can do everything on his own.
There you go. That was so fast.
Nothing getting by Davis. He immediately realized I hadn't filled his sandbox up yet. This means I have to make an emergency trip to the hardware store to help him out. He was very interested in helping out, and he kept a safe distance from all the sharp objects, so don't worry. After 4 bags of play sand, things were looking pretty good, and Davis was ready to test out his new sandbox. We previously used corn, but when it rained, it would get soaked in water and start to ferment. Also, it was attracting some kind of animal that kept opening the box. Hopefully with regular sand and a tarp over it, it'll stay a little bit more clean. Of course, Davis did not forget about the swing, which is basically a baby swing we attached to the Zipline. He begged me to put him in it, and we got some fun video of it.
I want to be high.
Ready, 1, 2.
No, I want to zip down that. No, I want to zip down that. I'm very high. Hi.
After a little bit of regular swinging, he wanted to try his swing attached to the Zipline, which has always been pretty fun for him. His playground is going to continue to evolve as he gets older, and it's never going to be a finished project. I just wanted to do a quick walkthrough showing everything we've got done so far. You saw the slide, and here's our little playhouse. You can see Davis's sandbox along with his hoop shed, storing all his trucks and tractors. You saw the couple of Adirondack chairs just for hanging out. We've got his zip line running through the length of the playground and his swing attached to it. I've also got his rope swing over here, which he has a lot of fun with. I'm hoping to do a climbing wall pretty soon, and I'll let you guys know when the next project is ready.